All right, part 2 of the Mega Man Legacy Collection 1 and 2. I'm going to be reviewing all of the Mega Man games, or previewing, giving impressions on all of the Mega Man games, with full reviews for the ones that I've actually completed in the past. I don't consider completion necessary for a review, but I'll be the first to admit that most of the games that I haven't completed on this list, I've only touched on them enough to say, okay, here's a hand wave in the air of what I think of this game. So, Mega Man. Let me begin by saying I am going to give a quick intro of each one of these so that I can split them out into individual videos later if I like. Mega Man. So, the Mega Man games are a series of running, jumping, shooting games where you can pick levels in any order and steal the abilities of the bosses as you finish them. Mega Man 1 is obviously where it all started, and I played it fully for the first time on Mega Man Legacy Collection 1 and 2 about 2 years ago. So, I give this game a 6 out of 10. It's a little above average. To be honest, that might even be a tiny bit too nice. But I feel like the game really, considering it was a 1987 game, it did some really cool stuff. I'm going to work my way from the cons from top to bottom, pros and cons from top to bottom, most important. So a couple of points for sure, maybe 3 points even are lost, because this game is very rough around the edges compared to its sequels. For example, there are some bosses that are nearly impossible to beat in this game. There are spots where you can run out of ammo for a weapon that you absolutely need to keep proceeding. Right on the first level of the boss zone where you're fighting Dr. Wily, there's a spot where I think you need to be able to freeze some flames. If you run out of ice ammo, tough luck. So, the game's definitely not... and the gameplay is not quite as tight as the later games either. Mega Man feels a little looser. On the other hand, it is surprisingly good for 1987, and this is why I don't give this game just an average score, give it a little extra point there. Because in 1987, there weren't a lot of games doing stuff like letting you pick up a piece of the environment and throw it at opponents, hiding stuff in the environment that you could get at if you were able to blast through using your powers, right? This game had a lot of neat little features in it that were really quite cool for 1987, right? It was a Nintendo quality game almost, and Capcom soon caught up with Mega Man 2. Number 3 con, it's the only game with no passwords. Hooray Legacy Collection. The Legacy Collection lets you do a quick save, so it doesn't really matter that there's no passwords. But the password system is pretty key to the Mega Man games. This would have been a bit of a slog to get through without any save option at all. And on the unfinished business side for Mega Man 1, none of these are really killing the score or improving it, but it is playing this game is like a fun history lesson in Mega Man, right? If you've played the later games, it's more or less obsolete. Mega Man 2 and Mega Man 3 and 4 are all way better games than this. In fact, really, pretty much any of the later games is better than Mega Man 1 in my opinion. But it is cool to see what games were doing in 1987 and how playing this game versus other 87 games is pretty interesting. Soundtrack's still pretty good too. Replay value for Mega Man, it's solid, but the series gets better from here. There's different paths to explore still because there's the 6 Robot Masters. You can pick, you can play the levels in any order you want. Notably, there are very difficult challenges in this game. This comes back a bit to the rough edges. Gutsman, who is typically the second boss you would want to take on in this game, the very beginning of his level has this terrible platform that goes around in a circle, and every time it hits a break in the line that it's going over, the platform goes doop and drops you. The timing is crazy. Maybe it would have been easier if I was playing the game on an old NES with a CRT TV. The timing is crazy, and I think almost everyone online acknowledges that the beginning of Gutsman's level sucks. Um, so yeah, this game definitely has some extra hard spots compared to the other Mega Man games. Uh, I don't know why I picked Blinking Mega Man to finish this review off, but what's the value on Mega Man? I gave it $6 Canadian, 909 US. I've got that bolded. I guess I better go back and double check. But really, the exchange rate doesn't matter. This game isn't worth a ton of money. I'd maybe even say $5 Canadian today. Um, I'm in a negative mood towards Mega Man 1. It's a fun history lesson on Mega Man. Like I said, it's not the best game in the series. We are talking Mega Man 2. The Mega Man games are shoot 'em up, running and jumping games where you collect your boss's abilities and use them to make other levels easier. You can play them in any order. So, Mega Man 2 was the game that made Mega Man a phenomenon, I'd say. I remember in school, I was just getting into NES a little while after this game had come out, and it was a big deal it was one game that pretty much everyone knew somebody who owned it, and pretty much anyone could talk about it at school. So unlike Mega Man 1, which granted I wasn't around for Mega Man 1, but my understanding is, yeah, people played it, enjoyed it. Mega Man 2 was the game that kind of made it a big hit. So I give this game an 8 out of 10. Which is excellent. It sets the standard for the series, really. So this is the top pro, I'd say, for the game. You're not going to see huge change from this game afterwards. There's always 8 robot masters. There's the like sort of themes, the music, all this stuff really gets set up here. And it's a big improvement in quality over the first game. That's important to note too, right? The controls feel a lot tighter. The game has much fewer weird rough edges where you hit a spot that you can't get past and that sort of thing. Number 2, amazing soundtrack. I mentioned that the game looks and sounds great and sets the standard for the future. There is a little bit of janky gameplay. I said there's fewer rough edges. There are a couple of spots. I find beginning of Metal Man stage right around these guys. These things are a pain in the butt, and sometimes getting past them is touch and go. Like, hitboxes are not perfect on these, for example. But really, it doesn't have that many big issues, not like Mega Man 1. Also say that I think the final boss on this game and the ending of this game are still really cool after all these years. They really stand out. And so this was a bit of a short review, but basically played great, sounded great. Still had a little bit of work to do though, which is why I don't give the game a full 9 or 10 out of 10. Mega Man 2 is definitely worth checking out. The replay value, it's a pretty hard game, but it's got good replay value like most Mega Man games. This one has two difficulty levels, but I honestly don't remember how different they are. And overall, yeah, it's a really solid game. I would say it's worth around 20 bucks Canadian or 15 US. Better yet, get the Mega Man Legacy Collection. And that is Mega Man 2. Mega Man 3. So we're going to talk about Mega Man 3. This is one of my favorites in the series. These games are running, jumping, shooting games where you can fight the bosses in it or levels in any order, and the bosses give you their abilities, which make the other levels easier. So Mega Man 3, yeah, this is I give this game a 9 out of 10. I really enjoy this game. I'm probably a little biased, I'll acknowledge, towards it, because it is the first Mega Man game I owned. And it actually was the only one I owned, I think, until I bought the Legacy Collection more recently. So My number one pro for this game is it takes the Mega Man 2 standard and runs with it. So they added a few new features. They created a whole second set of levels you could play where you fight the old sort of remixes of the old Mega Man 2 bosses. So there's 4 extra levels compared to Mega Man 3, and I really like how that part was laid out, letting you still choose levels instead of just having 2 boss castles, which a lot of the later games do. Those Wily levels, that's what they called those remixes, really gave it a feeling like it was still an ambitious game. That ambition's going to feel like it gets lost a bit as the series goes on. Rush was also a good addition too. I forgot to mention that. Rush is Mega Man's robot sidekick dog, and he can transform into a submarine or let you fly. So it took the concept of the 1, 2, 3 platform things that Mega Man has in the second game that help him do more than just jump, right? He's got a number 2 is a rocket sled that flies through the sky while he stands on it. Rush gives that concept of mobility power-ups a little more personality. So yeah, this game definitely still has a certain level of ambition. Besides the big pros and cons, those are the things that kind of really set the game's score, but I'll add, I like the slide ability. I don't know if I did already say that, but it was one of the things that I feel they added to the game that was really worthwhile. Mega Man can just kind of do like a little slide that lets him get under obstacles and lets him quickly dash under enemies that are jumping over him. I thought it was a really good addition to the series. I've heard some people say the weapons in this game are kind of weak, and I will acknowledge the top spin move is really hard to land, and some of the others are not the best. So that's, I don't think it costs the game a whole score a whole point or anything in my opinion, but it's worth mentioning. And there's these fish egg enemies that are boring to fight. They just like pew, 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 kill the egg, kill the egg, kill the egg. Once in a while they hatch into a tadpole that you have to fight. Mostly you're just shooting through these boring obstacles.
Contrary to the note, not much comment, actually I think the Wily levels are worth mentioning. They do add some replay value. Like all the Mega Man games, you've got the 8 levels that you can play in any order, then the Wily levels, 4 more sort of remixed versions that you can play in any order. So probably a little bit better replay value than some of the other Mega Mans, where you wouldn't have Wily levels at all, or you might just have a linear castle. Keep in mind, as usual, this is a pretty difficult game as well. NES hard, as people like to say.
The value on Mega Man 3, I would give this game, I would pay $24 for this game, around 18 US as of this writing. It's probably my personal favorite, although there are lots of other great games in the series. Mega Man 4. So the Mega Man games are running, jumping, shooting games where you can pick the levels in any order you want, and when you beat the bosses, you get their abilities, which might make other levels or bosses easier to defeat. Mega Man 4, the series is in full swing at this point on NES. They introduced the idea of Dr. Cossack, a new villain who... Spoiler alert, it turns out it was Dr. Wily, the regular villain all along. This was a fun game, 4th entry in the series. I give it a 9 out of 10, same as Mega Man 3. So let's go through the pros and cons. Number 1 pro, it is still the same great Mega Man. There's lots of fun to be had here, as usual. Another pro, the Cossack story, Dr. Cossack being the sort of pretend villain was a nice change of pace. It was a really cool idea that's a little harder to manage today because we've kind of gotten used to the idea that it's always Dr. Wily at the end. I wish more video games would come up with more than one villain. On the con side, This shouldn't be number 4, should it? But anyways, my biggest con for this game, I'm not in love with the Mega Buster. You can charge up your weapon in this game, as shown here. I found the sound effect was annoying. I found I was always trying to do it because I wanted the extra attack power, but the sound effect was annoying and interrupted the music, which is one of the highlights of the Mega Man games. So I wasn't in love with it. And to this day, I don't mind having Mega Man's side weapons as chargeable. I still don't know if chargeable on the main weapon is necessarily the best. I kind of prefer when his regular weapon is just rapid fire, but that might just be me. Unfinished business. These aren't so. One small side item to mention: the Mega family continues growing rapidly with this game. Eddie is added on, or Flip Top, as he's sometimes known. A little red dude who shows up to throw out your power ups. Not really a big pro or con, but you'll notice the Mega family starts to become kind of wacky after a while. Replay value for this game, it has 2 castles, which was fun. You got a Dr. Cossack castle, and then when you beat him and you discover it was Dr. Wily all along. Sorry, spoilers. The story of the Mega Man games is not that important. It's maybe not as good as the Wily levels in Mega Man 3, in my opinion. It's more linear. So, overall, what is the value on Mega Man 4? I'd say $23. I can. It's basically the same as Mega Man 3. I knocked a buck off. Oh, Mega Man 5. These are just impressions because I haven't played Mega Man 5 all the way through. This was probably the NES game where we started thinking, well, I think players and reviewers started saying, there's like one of these every year or two and they're all kind of the same. The big change in Mega Man 5 was Proto Man's the villain? Yeah, like I said here, this is where she started to look a little more formulaic. Proto Man as boss was cool, but you figure out it's Wily without even really playing the game. It's probably still a great game. I've played it a few times, but I've never gotten very far. Mega Man 6 impressions. Definitely by the time this game came out, people had a bit of classic Mega Man fatigue. To be honest, like I never played this game. I say it's the second Mega Man game I never played. That's true because I had never played Mega Man 1 up until later. The Super NES was in full swing when this game launched. I think Mega Man X might have come out by now. So I think a lot of people missed out on this one. It became a big collector's item, in fact. The Rush Armor and having a villain named Mr. X were the big additions. They also had kind of a Street Fighter feel to the story. I think Mr. X is running a robot fighting tournament, so that was kind of cool. But there's not a ton going on with this game. All right, Mega Man 7. So, this is my Mega Man 7 review. The Mega Man games are a series of running, jumping, shooting games where you collect your enemies' abilities to make the levels easier. You can play the levels in any order. So getting the right ability might make a level or a boss much easier. Mega Man 7 was the first Mega Man game on Super Nintendo. I give it a 7 out of 10. It's really good, but maybe not great. So I'm going to go through the pros and cons from top to bottom. The main thing holding this game back is the classic gameplay is there, but it's a little off. They made the sprites a lot bigger to sort of show off the 16-bit graphics. And as a result, everything on the screen is a little cramped. I have one more complaint about the gameplay too, which might come up again later, but I find also a lot of bosses in this game grab Mega Man and hold on to him and suck his energy up. And that's really frustrating because you're just sitting there watching the animation with no way to escape however many hit points you're going to lose. Makes you feel like you're out of control in the game. On the pro side, 16-bit graphics for an 8-bit series. Mega Man, up to this point, there had been 6 games on NES. It was nice to finally see the game get a leap in technology. And frankly, if you're playing this as part of the Mega Man Legacy Collection, there's 8 games with 8-bit NES graphics and 2 games with something more modern, so it really stands out in the collection. Again, on the con side, it's not as long as some of the older games, actually. There's a surprising number of hidden things in this game that can kind of give it some replay value or add a little first time play value. But there's only the 8 boss levels, a couple of sort of almost like I'd call them cutscene levels right at the beginning of the game and midway through the game. And then the doctor, the big castle at the end of the game, like they all have. So it doesn't quite have the same level of what's the word I'm looking for? It doesn't have quite as much to do as say Mega Man 3, in my opinion. On the unfinished business side, the soundtrack I thought was nothing special for Super NES. I thought the Mega Man X games sounded a lot better. Um, Picking instead of 8 levels, most of the earlier games let you pick from all 8 levels at once. This game gives you 4 levels.
Then there's sort of an intermission level, and then you fight 4 more robot bosses. I gotta say, I'm not sure how I feel about it. First time through, it's kind of nice because you don't have as much guesswork at what order to play the levels in. But I don't know if it's going to do much for replay value if you go back to play the game again later. Um, the cutscenes are pretty fun, but they do need to be skippable. There's a lot of slow text on those cutscenes too, so they're kind of brutal. Finally, there's Rush Search, which is an interesting ability. Rush can, your robot dog sidekick can show up and sniff around for items, but it's also kind of boring because you're constantly stopping the gameplay to look around for items instead of progressing. As for replay value, I put in around 20 hours and collected most of the extra Easter eggs in the game. It has decent replay value with the level select function, as do all Mega Mans. But like I mentioned before, maybe being restricted to 4 and then 4 again reduces that replay a little bit. The challenge level is pretty high, maybe not quite as high as some of the earlier Mega Man games, but the final boss in particular seems to be very infamous for his difficulty.
So as for the value of this game in dollars, I'd say around $17 Canadian or 13 bucks US. That said, complete in box, this game is now $500. So getting this on something like the Mega Man Legacy Collection is a pretty good deal. Next up, impressions of Mega Man 8. The game does look really great with its 32-bit sprites, even though they're old-fashioned today. This game certainly looks way more advanced than any of the other games on the Mega Man Legacy Collection. Only really the brand new Mega Man 11 looks better. It also plays a bit better than Mega Man 7. The sprite scale is a little closer to the old 8-bit games rather than the bigger sprites, so it feels better. And it continues the 4x4 boss setup from 7, which really might be a pro or a con depending on how you look at it. A little easier to figure out what order to start in, a little less replay value when you come back. On the con side for Mega Man 8, the voice acting is famously awful. And the whole game's a little bit on the cheesy side. You know, characters like Clown Man are a little cheesy. There's a whole shmup section where Mega Man can add his entire Mega family of characters like Rush and Flip Top on while he flies around and shoots. It's a little bit cornball, but hey, Mega Man was never meant to be super serious. The other problem I have is there's a few bad game design choices in here. The levels tend to be overly long and always have some kind of gimmick in them. My least favorite of all being the Clown Man stage. In that particular stage, you've got a whole bunch of boxes that you can sink into and come back out of. So you're going in one box and coming out another box elsewhere. It's one of my least favorite 2D platformer design gimmicks. It requires all this memorization, and there's nothing really fun about it, in my opinion. Other levels have things like snowboarding, shmup, and some are good, some are not so hot. So overall, Mega Man 8, not likely a 9 or 10 out of 10 type game, but kind of fun to check out, and a nice break from all the 8-bit games on the Mega Man Legacy Collection.
So, impressions of Mega Man 9. Originally, I was overjoyed to see Mega Man back, and it was kind of cool even in NES form. But then I saw that they took away the slide and the Mega Buster. I didn't mind the Mega Buster disappearing so much, but I kind of missed the slide. They really tried to start this one over from Mega Man 2, and personally, I wouldn't mind seeing them start over again from a slightly later point in the series, though it definitely didn't hurt to go back to the basics a little bit, in my opinion. I do find the game's difficulty level is very high, maybe a little cheaper with the instant kills, spikes, and that sort of thing than some of the earlier games. Mega Man 10. This game adds Proto Man as a playable character. That's pretty awesome. That's it. I was kind of disappointed, especially when this came out, that they just went down the NES route again. I was glad to see them reboot it, but I would have liked to see some progress when Mega Man 10 came back out again. This one also includes an easy mode. Maybe there were some complaints about the cheapness of the first game. I find it's kind of a tricky pick, though. With easy mode on, all the instant deaths are taken away, but the bosses maybe become a little too easy for vets like myself. And that brings me to Mega Man 11. Impressions on this one. It's nice to finally see Mega Man get an updated look and feel. They also added some interesting time control mechanics. You can slow things down or give Mega Man a little extra speed. Interesting idea, maybe a little on the easy side, but I'm not against mixing things up a little bit for the series, and it would probably make it a little more accessible for newcomers. One thing I don't care for in this game, even if it is a little bit personal pet peeve type of thing, I think the costumes Mega Man gets when he swaps weapons to the different Robot Masters look pretty cheesy. I'd like to just see the classic color change as you go from costume to costume. But there it is. That's Mega Man 11 from what I've played so far. This was the one game that's not on the collection, a brand new edition on Switch, and I believe all the other newer consoles as well. And that was the Mega Man Mega Review. I hope you enjoyed it. Keep on kicking butt.